Greetings and welcome to the Real FERM podcast. This week, it's all about peace and love. As I say at the end of every episode, pretty much from the beginning or somewhere in the 70 whatever that has been recorded, but this time it's from the start and throughout, not just for the sake of love, but as you can probably infer from title/description, whatever, that it has something to do with the topic that I've been all on about the past several weeks. But even more particular, the telepathy, the psionic of it all. And this is a topic that I've touched upon and everyone has touched upon in many ways. Pertaining to the UFO thing and all that. But the reason why this is happening now for me in this episode is this past week, there was a Joe Rogan experience with a one Kai Dickens, who has a podcast called the Telepathy Tapes. And it's very interesting. The conversation has nothing to do with aliens or UFOs in particular, but has everything to do with telepathic autistic kids, and I should have been one. But something's there. We're gonna get into it. Let's get into it. Alright, so over the past week I've been trying to think about what I want to talk about. There hasn't been any new big things happening in this world of metaphysical potentials. And there was a newsnation. The reality check series keeps going on. The last one was a guy, Swedish guy or Russian, someone from Europe, Eastern Europe or something. Scientist talking, or I'm not even sure. I was listening to it in the background. Something about an object in the water that like crashed. That's neither here nor there. If you want to check that out, you can. But what I'm trying to say is, what caught my attention that I knew I had to talk about this, was this Joe Rogan experience with Kai Dickens. If you haven't seen it, highly suggest you do. If you're interested in this, it's the typical Joe Rogan length of discussion, but it is riveting, especially if you have never even heard of, which I hadn't really. I kind of heard of about this topic, this nonverbal. Usually, I guess they're all autistic, or that's the nomenclature, the label that they end up getting. Obviously, the autism spectrum is wide, and many things can result, many pathologies, so to speak. Not to pathologize it, but the way modern psychiatry works. Anyway, this woman Kai Dickens, who I guess I didn't listen to any of these Telepathy Tapes episodes, but she has this whole series that's talking about these children and reports from, and even real studies, not just anecdotal, this person said this, whatever. There is a lot of that, but it's much like the UFO subject. It's a lot of corroborated stuff, and it's actual children that are, it's a lot going on. I'm not going to try to fully explain it here because this is not my expertise. My expertise is making wild connections that it's just fun for me to do, and hopefully for you to listen to. So before I go too far into my own off the rails train of thought, which is often what happens here, I'm going to play one of the clips that I pulled from the Joe Rogan episode with Kai Dickens, and we're gonna draw some connections here that will get to the UFO UAP alien thing, but just so you know, the Kai Dickens has no association with UAP, UFO, aliens stuff. This is just purely, this episode that she did with Joe Rogan is purely about telepathy in autistic nonverbal children. And I guess maybe not just, they don't have to be children. I'm not sure, but let's just start watching. Sorry, I have to get better at preparing this so I don't have to edit it afterwards. But the clip I'm about to play for context is she's talking about an experience where the child had a teacher of the child, an instructor, whatever, had this experience with this kid reading her mind, and then she goes on into a specific thing of interest for me. So let me start it here.
Classroom, he took out a pen and drew like a donut, a fish, and kind of drew the things that it like rattles her to her core. Like he knew what she was thinking the night before. And now that he's, graduated, she still works with him just on a volunteer basis for the sheer joy of just being with him. And she asked him years later, "How did you do that?" And he like, "Were you remote viewing through me? And how did you know at that moment?" And he's like, "Well, once you were thinking of me, that was like my invitation to come in. Like I won't just crash into someone's thoughts. It's like I have to be kind of invited in by like, like the thought." Oh. So I do think that there's a way to kind of control it. And I know that the teacher that was having the student jump into her brain a lot, the younger man, she said, like, you need to stop that. Like, if I will invite you in when I want you, but you can't just come into my mind whenever. That's not appropriate,
Right.
And so I think every individual is an individual, right? I mean, how this stuff works and is probably different.
So before I continue to the part that really strikes a chord in me, this is, as you can, if you haven't listened to this episode yet, or if you don't plan on it, whatever, what I'm trying to say is, it is a mind-blowing discussion, especially if you have never learned about this phenomenon in particular of this telepathy in nonverbal autistic children. So she's obviously when you hear her talk right from the jump in this clipped scenario, it could seem like very crazy, but she does lead it up with a lot of good, solid, corroborating understanding of that this is almost certainly a real thing. She's not just a crazy kook. In particular, Joe Rogan even brought up in passing, like, I heard they use those kids someone said they used the autistic kids for the government to summon aliens. And she was like, I don't believe that. And then they quickly got off it. So there's really nothing to do with that. But
for each person, but I don't necessarily think, what many scholars have told me is like good energy allows them to swap thoughts. Like good juju allows them to do that. Being invited in, being open to it. It doesn't feel like they can just go into like, the person running for Senate's thoughts and be like, actually you did fund the blah, blah,
Right. The problem is, like, what if people get really good at that? Like, what if it expands and then people are just entering into your thoughts all the time? I think technologically that's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that Elon has said about this Neuralink device that they're enabling. He said, you're going to be able to talk without words.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the thing too, right? It's like, I think almost every non-speaker I've met, their concern is love, unity, right? And so if your thoughts are other people and your thoughts are loving and about unity, it's not scary then for other people to be reading your thoughts. You're going to be caring about other people, hopefully.
The real scary thing is that there are a lot of people out there in this world that do not have thoughts of love and unity.
Right.
They're damaged, hurtful, evil people.
Yep.
And they want to destroy everything around them.
Yep.
And that those people could acquire this ability. But would they be able to?
I don't.
This is the thing. It's like, has there been any evidence that evil people have been able to acquire this ability?
I would say what I have found, and even talking to scientists about this, that the baseline for this is love. There's a wonderful neuroscientist named Julia Mossbridge, and she has studied precognition. And one of the things she does in these precognition tests is be like, how much unconditional love do you feel for yourself, for other people, for the device you're taking this test on?
Yeah.
And the more people feel love, the better they do. And one of the things that I've heard from so many non-speakers with disabilities that the baseline is love. That love, love, love is like the thing that unlocks this stuff.
What do they describe love as?
Anything that unifies. I've heard that over and over again. What's love? It's
Really?
anything that unifies.
Ah, wow. Huh.
Isn't that the best description of love ever?
It is. It's a really good description.
So
It is the best description of love ever. Anything that unifies. So she's describing the prerequisite for this telepathic communication based on what she's experienced or what she's heard from people. I can't remember if she said she experienced it herself. It was a long. I only listened to the whole thing once. I didn't. It is a long. As Joe Rogan does, it's a long conversation. So I don't remember if, and that's not the point. The point is, love, 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 as she says. It's all about love, the good intentions. And then I start relating, well, also anything that unifies is absolutely, and we'll get, that alone warrants another discussion for another connection that I'm going to make a little bit. But going just right from there to some other familiar faces we've seen here before. Let's hear what Jake Barber had to say about the UAP thing.
Another implication too from what your experience shows is that whatever and wherever the intelligence is that's behind those craft, it seems friendly, benevolent.
Benevolent, yeah.
In fact, loving?
Loving. It's, if you want to connect with it, if you want to have a relationship, and if you want to see stuff flying in the sky, you need to be channeling a loving energy. That's
I find
just
that
the way
quite
it works.
beautiful.
Yeah, it is. In fact, there can be individuals in the group that throw off that vibe, that can mess up the vibration of the psionics work and their communication with the beings, and then you aren't as successful.
Have you, in any of the work that you've done, and I know you're being very limited in what...
So it's a quite the similarity here. Now, this is obviously jumping to conclusions. I'm not saying that this is like evidence or anything, but it is certainly a distinct connection. You have a woman who I'm trying to think of how to describe it. It's not, that has nothing to do with aliens, conspiracies, UAPs, unless you call telepathy a conspiracy, who stumbles upon or discovers this phenomenon that she's fascinated with, works with these people, and then believes that it is a real thing based on what she's observed and what people are saying and the behavior of them and all that. Comes to the conclusion that that the telepathic connection between the children and their teachers and whoever they're telepathically communicating with, the prerequisite is love, love, love. And then from before, Jake Barber, however you want to believe or not believe his story, is saying this exact same thing pertaining to telepathic psionic connection to extraterrestrial NHI craft, whatever. To summon them, to contact them, you need love, you need to have pure intention. Both telepathic phenomenon, one seems like the same kind of entity of, not entity as in like a conscious being, but the same phenomenon, the same fundamental thing that's happening, and the basis for it is love and good intention. Amazingly beautiful. And then there's one other man who I talk about often, who has says similar things about exactly what Jake Barber was talking about.
If you're clear. And so if you're scattered, whatever. The other thing is I found out they're not interested if as soon as someone becomes afraid or if they have prejudices, if they've studied the UFO subject, which is filled with mythologies of horrible negative information, it's all false, they aren't interested because they're not interested in what I call exo-racism, this sort of extrapolation of bigotry to different species in space.
Right.
So they're only really interested in people who have, are pure-hearted about it and not prejudiced.
That's incredible. That's fantastic, actually. Yeah.
Pure-hearted. Stephen Greer, he's been saying this for decades. Jake Barber comes out, military whistleblower person, psionic connection to UFO, alien, whatever you want to call it. It's all about love. Kai Dickens, completely unrelated to that topic, discovers that telepathy phenomenon in autistic nonverbal children is all about love. Completely unrelated fields aside from the telepathy connection. So this whole telepathy thing really does seem to be about love. And that's why it's all about peace and love up in here. This really, again, this is my wild connection. I really don't think it's that wild of a connection myself, just because it seems to align so perfectly. I don't, however, want to, not that I have a huge audience, so it doesn't really matter how I talk about it. But it's just more convincing to me that this whole telepathic thing. I've always kind of believed that there was some kind of telepathic sixth sense power, something hidden that humans can access, but most of us can't. I kind of always knew that was probably a thing. But now the more I'm hearing about the UFO, the whatever, there's so many damn names. I'm just going to say UFO, alien, the classics. Ever since I started getting more into that and the telepathic aspect of it, and then someone like Kai Dickens comes on and starts talking about these children that communicate telepathically, and it's all about love, and it just, dots just keep connecting. They don't stop connecting. And it is very much worth noting that Kai Dickens, you can make an argument for Stephen Greer, you can make an argument for Jake Barber and all these other UAP influential figures in the public space recently and in the past history are saying wild things to get attention, to grift and to make money, whatever. Kai Dickens is certainly, speaking of pure heart, doing, speaking about these things, researching about this thing from a genuine, authentic, caring, compassionate, and curious state of mind with these nonverbal children. So you can't just come and start saying she's grifting for money. Please, for the love of God. So she's saying the same stuff, not about aliens, not about contacting extraterrestrials and whatever, but in regards to the telepathic mind connection between higher consciously evolved entities, humans being a evolved consciousness relative to a dog, which in that Joe Rogan Experience they talk extensively about animals and their own mysterious telepathic capabilities. But humans, we're an advanced guy, but I'm of the mind, as you may know, that there are some other much higher evolved conscious entities that exist in the universe or in other dimensions, whatever. Some may call them angels, some may call them God, God, some may call them aliens or whatever. the nature of this is very fascinating. I would love to do more of a deep dive myself. Just there's just so much information about this topic, and it's all like kind of buried in taboo, conspiracy-esque. You have the CIA Gateway program. You have the all that stuff as well. So this is, I mean, yeah. So hi Dickens. Now, furthermore, what's very fascinating, in particular, probably the most fascinating thing of the entire interview that Joe Rogan conducted, conversation, let's call it. It's more of really a conversation. That they had was this particular place that the children call the Hill. And it seems, well, no, it doesn't seem. The way it is described is a place, an ethereal realm. It sounds like they're talking about they astral project their consciousness and they all meet up in astral projected space, or whatever you want to call it. And they kind of like, it's like a telepathic version of a chat room online, or a Discord, whatever modern version you want to call it. And they can, because they're nonverbal, they go to this place, the Hill, and they communicate with each other and make friends and stuff. So here's a clip about that, okay?
Yeah.
And what does he describe it as?
Well, he said it's divinely protected, that there seems to be
Divinely?
Mm-hmm. There seems to be like some sort of guide there that like you can't just go in, like Halliburton can't go rip it off, like there's like it seems to be guarded, and that only people with good intentions can go. And I hope people don't try to start going there. I really, really don't. This is a non-spin. I know. It's like one of the pains actually for me is that and putting this out there, but I do think the non-speakers are in charge there. It's their space. It's a beautiful space. And I don't think anyone can just get let in. You have to really be
open,
but not just, but have a good intention.
Right. Completely pure.
Pureness and love are a big part of this.
And this person who's typical, a regular person.
Pureness and love are a big part of this telepathy love revolution. Let's go. Okay, so I love this so much. Love this. Love. So I did a little research on the Hill phenomenon, within the phenomenon of this telepathy. And here's I use the, by the way, ChatGPT, if you have the plus version, the deep research option, phenomenal new function. It compiled from 25 sources. It's very long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will skim through some of it. And it provides sources and everything about. So I asked it, I want to know more about the Hill, where these individuals can go to. There is a thing before. But anyway, okay. So this is what it says. The Hill, a telepathic meeting place for non-speakers. A recent surge of interest in telepathic communication among non-speaking individuals was sparked by the Telepathy Tapes podcast 2024, which is Kai Dickens, Kai Dickens podcast. In this series, sorry, I was trying to burp at the same time, and I almost said familiars, which is kind of like a telepath or ghost thing, right? Maybe I'm having a Freudian slip or something. In this series, families, the same root word though, so forgive me. Families of nonverbal autistic children claim these kids can, quote, project their consciousness to a non-physical communal space called the Hill. On the Hill, quote, thousands of telepathic nonverbal children from around the world unquote, supposedly meet to chat, exchange ideas, form friendships, and even romantic relationships, all without spoken words. Remarkably, this mystical hill is said to host more than just living children. Visitors there can allegedly converse with deceased geniuses and historical figures to learn lessons from the greatest minds of the past. In the podcast narrative, the hill is portrayed as a shared spiritual plane of existence where non-speakers reveal advanced intellect described as, quote, geniuses akin to aliens. That's what it says. And access knowledge beyond normal reach. This dramatic idea suggests a rich inner life and community for individuals who cannot speak, achieved entirely through wordless mind-to-mind connection. So that's a thing. Whether you want to believe it or not is up to you. Again, when large groups of people all have these experiences, I am a man of faith in this way, and I tend to believe them because it's very hard for me to believe otherwise that they're all lying for some kind of weird group attention lie thing. They're also nonverbal. They literally can't talk. So, it just makes sense. All right, they're Now, I don't know, I'm sure some of these sources comes from skeptic.org.uk. So these are skeptical people writing about what is being talked about. So I'm sure they're giving their own skeptic view within that source. But like the converse with deceased geniuses and historical figures, that seems very specific. I mean, it's kind of like praying to your ancestor kind of thing, which is obviously a ancient human tradition. And so if you start, you can go run wild with your thoughts here and start thinking, well, is this are they accessing the Akashic records or what the collective unconscious that's proposed by Carl Jung, like all of these wild human consciousness beyond the body theories and hypotheses of what may be possible with consciousness itself beyond our materialist experience. But when I read where these non-speakers reveal advanced intellect described as geniuses akin to aliens, I was really, that really got me going. Anyway, let me keep reading. There's a little more about the summary. Claims of the Hill go far beyond typical nonverbal communication. Parents and educators in the podcast report that some non-speaking autistic people can read minds, see ghosts, and even predict the future, with the Hill serving as a hub for their extraordinary interactions. So they're gaining this knowledge from the Hill, which doesn't just have other nonverbal autistic people tapping into. There's some other entities there, ancestors, deceased geniuses, whatever. And as she said in that clip, Kai said, there's like guides and they guard from like unwanted conscious entities from entering. This is far. I am not super comfortable with. I'm comfortable with believing it. I'm just not comfortable in trying to explain it. I'm just here to talk about my reaction to learning about this, I suppose, and my initial thoughts about it. But when it says stuff like, I can hear the skeptics screaming, because when it says, and even predict the future, because once you start saying stuff like that, then it's like, okay, well then that has the power to, that's an immense power within society if you can literally predict the future. Although I'm assuming it's not as concrete and simple as, the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl, so I'm going to bet my savings account on it, if you were thinking that before the Super Bowl happened. Or, similar to how Jake Barber and Stephen Greer talk about the intentions of, if you're not pure of intention, if you have some kind of malicious or you doubt it or some doubting is not really what I'm talking about here, but like it doesn't work. Like it's almost like the phenomenon of receiving that information literally won't happen if you have some sort of evil intention, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, that's just I don't know. I'm just saying the thoughts that come to my mind as I read this. Let me finish this paragraph, and then this makes me think of something in particular, which I talked about here earlier, of my own experience. For example, one child in the series writes a heartfelt eulogy for a friend whom they'd, quote, only met on the hill in the metaphysical plane, implying they formed a real bond entirely via telepathic meetups. According to these accounts, many non-speakers independently mention experiencing talking on the hill, suggesting a common phenomenon. These anecdotes have resonated with some listeners as uplifting. Imagine discovering everyone was wrong about your child. They are in there, communicating in an otherworldly way. Said about the kids that have never said a word to their parents, but I can imagine. Oh God, is there dandruff? Sorry, I shouldn't have you brought that up. If you're a parent of a nonverbal child, that must be tough. And then learning that apparently they're having full on communicative experiences in their minds with other that is pretty wild. But they have also raised eyebrows in the scientific and autism communities. So yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of hardcore anti-this skeptic people. As it does point out, again, there's like 10 more paragraphs about this. It does start talking about consciousness theories of the shared mind. Intriguingly, the notion of the hill realm aligns with several long-standing theories in consciousness studies and philosophy. The collective unconscious from Carl Jung, the noosphere of Pierre Teilhard de Chardin and Vladimir Vernadsky. I have not heard of that one. Literally a sphere of human thought enveloping the earth. Morphic resonance, Rupert Sheldrake, global brain and consciousness networks. And then it relates to the spiritual and folklore. Perspective on wordless communication. Talks about Eastern spiritual practices, mystics and whatnot, ancient Indian yogic texts, all of this stuff. I just find it so beautiful and awesome that this topic is becoming more and more mainstream and accepted, and simultaneously being connected and kind of confirmed, not confirmed literally as in it must be true just because of, but confirmed by historical texts and teachings and philosophies and all that of the world of old. What comes to my mind specifically of my own experiences, and when I have to go back to this, which is the psychedelic stuff. If you haven't seen the 2 or 3 episodes ago where I talked about went into detail on some of my most profound psychedelic experiences, a lot of this is pretty much the same, feels like it's describing the same thing, not in the like visual way of it, but in the mental consciousness way of it. The screen is lighting up my eyes too much, sorry. I'm still working things out here. Okay. Like, what came to my mind in particular, she started talking about the guides, like there's some guides that are protecting the hill or whatever. And then I was reminded once again of the most profound spiritual experience I've ever had, which is that one salvia trip I talked about in that one episode, and the clip that I made, where I was shot out of my body and projected into a amorphous space where I was without a doubt in the presence of multiple conscious entities that I later confirmed were not in front of me in real space by my friend who was sitting next to me when I emerged from the experience. And I was like, well, maybe the salvia put me in the hill, and or those were the guides, or they were powerful entities, or they were dead ants, conscious human consciousness that were passed on, or they were maybe they were nonverbal autistic kids that I was projected in front of, and they were like, oh, it's funny, we didn't expect to see you here. And then I left, because that's kind of the vibe I got when I had that experience. But it also felt very, very familiar and weird. I don't know. I'm not going to rehash the story, but this reminds me of it. As well as the, in particular, I'm going to put this down now. Lots of stuff on there. Look it up. The hill, nonverbal, telepathic, autistic children communicating on the hill. And then again, the LSD, heavy LSD, transcendental, everything becomes one situation, ego death, whatever you want to call it, or DMT, same thing, or high dose of psilocybin, whatever substance. And again, I believe that the psychedelic chemicals, or any chemical that can bring you into that state of consciousness that kind of just breaks through the material world, is not just a hallucination. If you've done enough of a dose of these chemicals, you know what I'm talking about. But if not, it's easy to think, oh, your brain's just creating things that aren't there, which I have no way to prove, but whatever. What I'm trying to say is, I believe those chemicals they're kind of like cheat. They're like hacks. They're biohacks to force your consciousness into that state, regardless of whether you're trying to get there or not. If you ingest the chemicals, they do a neurotransmitter thing, and then your material veil filter is removed and everything is exposed to you. And it can be a very unpleasant time if you're not prepared for it, which is why, because with most hacks in life, there comes some kind of negative imbalance from it that you have to accept if you want to use that sort of cheat code, so to speak. And very much so if you do it in a bad setting, or if you try to fight the dissolving of your ego, you end up going genuinely psychotic in the mind, and it is very frightening. It's happened to me many times. Not wise decisions, those were. Those specific times I'm mentioning. But yeah, I mean, and yeah, back to that's right, the love, the definition she said was anything that brings unity. And the psychedelic experience in its most intense essence that I've experienced is absolute unity of literally everything. Full stop. That's what it feels like a lot of the time. Indistinguishable. Nothing is distinguishable from anything else. It is a blissful, pure, it's all good, everything is one. I am nobody and I am everybody. All of that beautiful stuff. I'd love to experience that without the need to subject my body to 24 hours of tripping. But you know, I've not trained in transcendental meditation, although I have the intention of at least trying. Although I have a feeling my hard asshole left brain is a little too controlling most of the time, but I think I can train my way out of it if I try hard enough. I need a mentor. I need a yogi, a shaman. Is there any shamans out there? Hit me up. I'm willing to be a student of yours. Yeah, I don't want to make this go too long. The other thing this makes me think of, obviously, is just religion in general, as I've related the UFO theories back to, and many people, everyone else has as well. But in particular, back to the love of it all, going back to biblical times when Jesus Christ came to the earth to give his message. Whether you believe he was a real person or not, I fully believe he was at the very least a real person, and had the legacy that is more or less described by the Bible on humankind. He's literally like the most famous person in human history, and somehow we're still talking about him. So something must have profound have happened. Anyway, his whole message is love, love, love. God is love. Love your neighbor. It's literally all love. So that's beautiful. And what I guess I'm trying to say is telepathy has to do with love. Telepathy is a conscious phenomenon of the consciousness itself. Consciousness we still don't understand. Neurologically, neuropsychologically, whatever you want to call it, biologically. We don't fully understand how it's generated, how it operates. Something to do with the brain, yes, but is the brain tuning into something, or is it creating it? We don't know, blah, blah, blah. But the telepathy, the consciousness, love is the basis for the telepathy. Consciousness is spirituality. It is the afterlife. It is this is all about, it's all about consciousness. It's all about, we aren't just this and what we can see, something more profound is going on. I fully believe that, 100%, no doubts in my mind. It is what it is. And I'm fully a Christian again. I'm just kidding. I mean, might as well. I subscribe to the teachings of Jesus for the most part. Yeah, I don't think he doesn't. The sketchy stuff kind of comes from the Old Testament and the way people interpret the other things from the Bible. But in terms of Jesus and his core teachings, amazing, wonderful, wise words for a happy and loving, love-filled life, fulfilled life. And yeah, that's pretty much the main things I wanted to talk about until I develop some more thoughts about this. This is all still pretty fresh in my mind. Love has a lot to do with whatever's going on in the conscious world, and that translates to telepathy, which translates to UFO, potential extraterrestrial stuff. People have been talking about it for a long time. I think it's time that more people, more people are talking about it, but more people to accept it, or at least open your mind to entertaining the idea, because I think there's something to it. Now, to close this out, as I mentioned last episode, I would like to continue a tradition of segment nature, where we watch or go over something I find in Reddit and that's related to UFOs or aliens that is particularly fun or interesting or funny or whatever. This somebody posted this video in r/UFOB, and it's one of the wildest UAP videos I've ever seen, and that's like what it's advertised as in the title. There's 4 separate videos, but they're kind of the same thing, or they're from the same person. Don't know if it's real or faked or whatever. It looks pretty pixelated in a way that it seems like it wouldn't be something you would fake, but it is one of the wildest things. Let's go ahead and begin to watch this here. There's no sound, so I will narrate it as I'm looking at it. It looks at first, it's like a strange shape, and then it's like rotating, and it almost has the form of a humanoid, but also, it's going in and out of focus, but I think that might just be the camera, the zoomed camera. It looks like a video game character that is glitching in the air. It's white. It's like pearlescent kind of. Like, it doesn't look like a craft. It doesn't look like a flying saucer or a UFO. It looks like a glitching fucking avatar from a video game stuck in the air. You know, this is the interdimensional sort of phenomenon, if this is real, I would say. I mean, just look at this thing. Excuse my beer drinking. It's just rotating. It goes on longer than I'm showing you too. If you want to find it, well, shit, I'm still not as prepared as I should be. I don't know if I ever will be. But go to r/UFOB and it's something like, craziest UFO thing that I've ever seen, whatever. And I agree for myself. That is the craziest UAP video I've ever seen, in terms of if that's a real thing in the sky. Some people, I think the most skeptical comment about it was like, balloons are shaped like people sometimes. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Obviously you can't know, but if that is real and that's not a balloon, it looks like, if you've ever played a video game and like especially in like the early access or those types of games where they're always doing like debugging and it's not a perfect game, or even in perfect games, sometimes like a character glitches into a wall or something and it's stuck. It looks like, if you look at like if you're playing Fortnite or something, this doesn't really happen in Fortnite, but it's just the first thing I think of. Somebody like jumps into the air and then their character gets stuck in the air for some reason because of a glitch. And then they're just like kind of hovering in the air and they're rotating and spinning around in a weird way. Very bizarre. If that's a real thing, I would just go ahead and jump to the conclusion that perhaps it is more than three-dimensional spatial being that is caught in some kind of rift. I don't know. Poor guy. Or it's exactly what it wants to do. Who knows? Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching, sticking around to the end, especially if you're hearing me say this. Hit the thumbs up, leave a comment. And I'll find something to talk about next week. And eventually there'll be a guest. I don't know how. It's never gonna happen, but it will one day. And yeah, peace and love. And also, I'll leave you with a quote from Jesus Christ. Blessed are those who have not seen, yet still believe.